over in Pamplin Grove. There's some amazing, giant, beautiful redwood trees. And some of them even have faces, and I've had amazing experiences of connecting with them. And it's a little bit like, off topic, but it's totally on topic. The trees, if someone's got like, you might get feedback if it's too loud. The trees are themselves dreamers in another realm. And they're, barky containers that we see here, that's like their little anchor point in this realm that allows their consciousness to be here. And the trees, especially these giant ancient redwoods with continuity of consciousness, allow themselves to be used as portals or like little peepholes for consciousnesses in other places. So it's in exactly the same way that I am sitting here in Eureka, California, but you are perceiving me through the camera on my screen. You can be on a far distant planet or in a far distant star system and project your consciousness through the organic container of a redwood tree or a saguaro cactus, or the key is it has to be a bond of unconditional love. So it can't be like I'm on a distant planet and I am deciding to force my mind and my consciousness into the container that lives on another planet. It doesn't work that way. It's got to be true, true connection through here involves true connection through the heart. So the point that I bring this up is trees offer themselves unconditionally as containers for consciousness. They offer themselves to these otherworldly beings to say, hey, you need to come have a meeting on Earth. You can come through me. So they allow consciousnesses to tune in through themselves as an antenna, or even to live through their corporeal form. And so I was talking to the trees about this, and I was like, so you guys are okay with being utilized as conduits in that way? And the trees assured me, not only are they okay with that, they're here to give unconditionally. That is part of their persona, or like their, I don't want to say contract or agreement. It's like part of who and what they are on a very deep level. I love the Shel Silverstein book called The Giving Tree. It's like a children's book, but it's also for people that are chronologically older than a tiny child. It absolutely embodies this idea that the trees are here as unconditional love beings, and whatever we take from them or whatever we do to them, they accept it. And I asked them, I said to the trees, you mean like even cutting you down, like they do clear cutting, like in some places in Northern California? And the trees said yes, even that, because they're not only offering their bodies as resources so we can build houses or boats or whatever, but they're also offering their deaths as life lessons. So if a lumberjack cuts down a tree and then feels regret and grows from it, that tree is happy to have offered themselves for that purpose. So Noelle has a question here. Are they at all concerned about their dwindling numbers? And oops, my screen is going crazy here. That is the whole point. How come I cannot see you guys? There we go. Sorry about that, had a little technological glitch. The trees are not concerned about their dwindling numbers because they see themselves as sacrificial givers, that they are giving to humanity. It's kind of like cut down as many of us as you need to in order to figure out that this is not the way. They're like, in Native American tradition, there's a story about time when there was one very warlike tribe attacking another tribe. And instead of putting their best warriors in the front, they put their elders and their weakest children and tiny little people in the front. And when the warriors came to kill them, they were pretty much saying, we are not here to fight you. We are here as equals and beings of love. This is how. And what happened in the Native American story is that the warriors dropped to their knees. They dropped their weapons. They looked at themselves and they said, how could we be doing this? And they stopped before they even tried to kill anyone. This is the whole point, that through unconditional love, your quote-unquote adversary becomes overcome or quote-unquote subdued because they become converted and they become your friend. Thank you very much. That is a story from Peter Blum, who pours water for the sweat lodge that I participated in Woodstock quite regularly. And he would sing a song with it too. It was part of the cycle of stories that went through each round of the sweat lodge. And this is a very good reminder of like, how do we face our adversaries? We face our adversaries understanding that they are twisted and distorted sparks of true consciousness. And I'm not saying that anybody should be an unconditional doormat. Lucy's saying something down here. No one should be an unconditional doormat. Lucy says, we are having problems back east with boars eating ash trees, and they are all starting to die. Very tragic. I understand that there is this problem. So this, we can say, is part of balance of nature. You know, it is necessary to rebalance the ecosystem. A little bit is symptoms of homeostasis, things that are not in balance. So Earth is saying, hey, things aren't in balance. But just back to the trees very briefly, the trees are going to sue for citizenship. And, you know, if trees sue, we're not talking about like really a harmful thing. I put it forward in a lighthearted way. But what I'm talking about is the idea that trees now want to be recognized as individuated consciousnesses. And I put forth the idea that we should name all of our trees and put a little plaque on them. Like you put a name tag on your dog or your cat saying, my name is Sparky. Please name the trees. It is much harder to cut down a being whose name you know than an anonymous, you know, generic quote unquote tree. So that being on that note, good stuff to talk about with trees. I'm going to start the recording for the Educreations. I am happy to report that I have gone pro on the Educreations. So it used to be a free site. Now they charge. A donor came forward in order to cover the cost, and so there will be changes coming up next semester. I have to investigate as to what exactly that signifies, but there will now be additional features or good things about your student access to the Educreations classes that are being recorded on the screen behind me, and future lessons that I'm recording. So on the topic of future lessons, we're rolling into next semester. Everyone who's completed the initiatory class is, of course, invited to enroll in the advanced class. And I have about 12 of the 20 lessons already recorded and already prepared or in the can. The material is more sophisticated than what we cover here and includes more of the subtle understandings. So, for example, I spoke about the Merkabah and the basic shapes of it and the basics of what it is and what it can do in this initiatory material. In the advanced class, we get into advanced ways to program it. The specifics of how you sit down, create a Merkabic program, and then run it and activate it. It's just like saying if this were physics and we did basic physics, we now know what an atom is, we now know what forces are, we know what gravity is, but we don't yet know about, let's say, observership or the Heisenberg uncertainty principle or Schrödinger's cat. These are all of the things that are the significances or ramifications of learning the basic structure. I've been teaching you the basic structure. This is like you're made of timelines, and this is what your chakras are shaped like, and this is what your third eye is doing, and this is how you steer through time. And we've done a lot with conscious co-creation. We're going to get more into what is ascended mastership. What are the changes that happen when you begin that alignment with the central core timeline? And I'm also I haven't recorded it yet, but I'm telling you folks, I'm getting brave, I'm gonna do it. A lot of my interior understanding in the past few months has centered around human sexuality. And I've also got a lot of information about the biological aspects of human sexuality. So I've been challenged because this topic, it requires a lot of emotional maturity to be able to share it with people, with the right audience properly. So I'm really hoping that the right group of students will be open to listening to this material. I'm going to do it in 2 segments. I'm going to do one about healthy sexuality. What happens when we line up all of the chakras during the act of lovemaking and procreation, and these are 2 actual separate acts, lovemaking versus baby making, and also unhealthy sexuality, the way that sexual energy has been used as a tool for domination and control and abuse. Noelle has a statement. I was going to suggest the topic of sexual addiction. Absolutely, that's going to be in there. I'm going to talk about rape, sexual exploitation, basically the dark power structure that exists in the hyperspace realm and intertwines with this realm. Like we're thinking about Hollywood, you know, like the casting couch, when people sleep their way to the top. Yeah, and you know what, I'm just going to, oh my goodness, my computer does funny things sometimes. I'm just going to take care of the person who just joined in. I welcome you and I'm so happy that you joined in. I just need to make certain that I'm not going to get feedback. And I know there's a way to do this around here. Maybe it's from audio. I'll get it, guys. I will. Here we go. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to the person who just tuned in on your phone. And it just helps that I can mute the audio so that we don't get feedback. All right. What happens when sexual energy is not used in, let's say, a divine and awesome way? I once had a friend and she described it in exactly that way. People using their sexuality for things that aren't totally awesome. You know, a lot of people do that, and we will say in this time and place, this social culture totally devalues sexuality. It treats it like the cheapest, toss away, disposable thing, as opposed to what it really is, which is the most divine and sacred portion of the totality of your being. It's your direct connection to God and Goddess. It's where life comes from. It's part of the best part of you, and everything in this realm, you have to understand, is turned on its head. So we live in backwards land where people say this is a bad, wrong, shameful aspect of self, and we need to do some serious rectification, because that is the red chakra. It is the basis of the pyramid, and so much of the base of the pyramid in this time and place has been distorted. And just to give a little bit of a spoiler to everyone who's going to join the class and, you know, watch this upcoming episode, the function of male genitals was changed by the extraterrestrials who have been genetically mutating humanity. So some of the mutations that were changed in humans from the form that you were in into what you currently are, the cerebrum became more wrinkled, right? And there are more possible connections in the conscious areas of the brain, and the connection, it's not necessarily in the size, shape, or appearance of the genitals. It's in their function. It's in what stimulates them, what causes them to be aroused, and what initiates sexual behavior. Knowing that, go home tonight and look around at the world where you see all of these sexual cues. Everything on TV, everything in the media, everything that is about using sexuality as a tool to sell whatever commodity is being sold. That's clearly not using sexuality in its divine awesomeness. It's using it as like a cheap tool. There's a social network, not Facebook, like a new one that I started to go on, and everyone there is trying to be popular and get likes. And so they're just posting the most ridiculous, sexually explicit material. And I said to someone, that's just appealing to the LCD, the least common denominator. Gender inequality and transgender rights, Noel says. He's interested in, yeah, there we go. Well, I will definitely get into the suggestion for the lessons about healthy sexuality, gender identity, who we think of ourselves as male or female, or whom we are attracted to, and the idea of surgically or hormonally transforming from male to female and androgyny. That's an excellent suggestion, and I'll definitely be delving, like that's a topic that I feel humans have the proper maturity level to be able to handle. If I tell you that space aliens genetically modified all of your penises, that is very hard for some people to hear. And I'm saying it in a funny way to keep things lighthearted. Noah makes a great point down here in his comment. He says that cheapening sexuality currently supports the economy of hell. And that's what this is all about. You totally got it. That, oops, sorry, my computer sometimes does crazy things. I don't know, I might need to do some computer hygiene. But Anyway, the economy of hell, we're talking about that. The idea of abusers who then turn around and abuse others. Like vampires who feed off of new victims, who feed off of new victims. So this is part of this education for humanity about the way that you are being exploited with your sexual energy is necessary to be free. So we will go into that. Time to get going on the topic for today. This is the last lecture in the series, and this is all about the future. So I just completed, we did 2 weeks talking about galactic history. How did humanity get into this position in the first place? Backstory. How did we get here? It's like rubbing our eyes in the morning, waking up. How did we get here, all right? And then last week I did practical tips for how to protect yourself from all the demons that are constantly attacking you. Now that you know how you got here and what you can do and how to protect yourself and everything, now we're talking about where we are going. This painting, I have this up for a reason. This is entitled Ascension 2012. I painted it and completed it largely during the course of 2012. I'm not certain if you can see it. I'm blowing it up so you can see it as much as possible on your screen back there. But I often use details from this painting to show the chakras. And so this is one figure right here. And then you can see these rosettas. These are, first of all, Mobius transformations. Second of all, this is the shape of your chakras. Third of all, I don't know if you can see it because the projection's a little bit like light in color, but in the original painting, it causes a illusion called peripheral drift illusion, or PDI, which makes it actually look like these circles are rotating. So I used an optical illusion and tricky colors in order to actually make it look like the energy is moving and flowing. And I painted this also, so you can see what you have is a matrix of many, many figures all put together within this larger continuum of flowing energy. And I painted this also during the time that, so a lot of it was leading up to 2012, during the time that I was starting to prepare recorded lessons. Before I did recorded lessons, I pretty much, thought these thoughts to myself and painted my paintings, and I didn't necessarily express verbally all of these ideas. And I recognized that it was part of the necessary stage of humanity creating the noosphere. We are little neural tendrils growing together, that it was necessary for me to begin to speak and share my information with the other neurons. That's what this painting is all about. Each one of these people here has a chakra system, and the chakras are all connected by this huge non-physical energy matrix. And this is the realm that we're moving into. When I say noosphere, I will type it out for you. Oh, no, I don't want to make things too complex. I'll write it out for you. Hold on a sec. And it's going to be backwards for you too, which just makes this not the most effective. But basically, look at it in a mirror when you have an opportunity. Noosphere, okay? So I did not create this word. I think it was invented by Teilhard de Chardin and popularized by Terence McKenna and a writer whom I really admire named Julian May. Julian May is a science fiction writer, but I'm telling you, this person puts a lot of truth into the fiction that she writes. So I was telling Mike about this story, Golden Torque, the story of mind control from Atlantis, pretty much put into a fictional category. Where we are moving in the future is a connected mental sphere. Right now, each one of us are like individuated neurons, or like individuated home computers before the advent of the internet. Most people in this video conference today are old enough to remember individuated computers before the advent of the connection to the internet. And in that era, you can remember, you could do all the word processing you wanted. You could do all sorts of wonderful spreadsheets and organize your data beautifully, but what you couldn't do was share it effectively with others. You'd have to print everything out in a thick stack of sheets and then physically hand it over. The advent of the connectivity of the internet, it means that we can now share our data directly. Right now, to use the analogy, we have individuated organic computers. In order for me to share information from my individuated organic computer, I have to flap my moving mouth parts and actually cause compression waves in the atmosphere to travel to tickle your tiny little ears inside of your cochlea. I'm tickling your cochlea right now. If I didn't have to do that, that's the equivalent of analog printout of my information from my computer. I could tap into your mind and your energy system directly. I would not have to use verbalized language. I could use direct, conscious downloads. So what that might feel like is a flash of understanding. Understanding that comes in a package. It could be associated with various different smells, senses, or colors, shapes, or textures. Like you can send someone mentally the conscious feeling of the fruit, the orange. If I wanted to send someone the sense of an orange, I would send them not just this color, but also the bumpiness of the skin, the shiny, slick feeling of the skin. And I don't know how good you guys are with sense memory, but I would even attempt to send some of that sharp, you get like a tingle in your nose when you smell something citrusy, or if you taste it, that kind of like, I would attempt to mentally send those sensations, all right? So I'm trying to now prepare you mentally for the idea of what is a telepathic community like? Noosphere. This is what a telepathic community is like. I know Mike has perked up because this is a topic that you're really interested in. And my understanding personally is that this goes back to your lifetimes in Atlantis, which was a telepathic society. We didn't communicate by flapping our mouth parts. Very little mouth part flapping in Atlantis, but we communicated quite a lot. What needs to be understood is that communicating telepathically is far more sophisticated, far more subtle. It's like, when you read a text message or an email and someone says something like, "It was really great to see you last night." And you read that and you think, are they saying, "It was really great to see you last night," or are they like being mocking and be like, "It was really great to see you last night"? Same exact words, but very different tone. And when you speak with someone in person, you can catch that tone and that energy. Well, communicating telepathically is all about exchange of that energetic tone. There's a lot more going on than just the word packages. So we are moving into a telepathic community. In order to do that, we need to practice good mental hygiene. Because I'm telling you this, before you come and speak, like if you're going to talk to me face to face, brush your teeth first, all right? So that you have good breath, you have good hygiene, so that I'm not going to be smelling like whatever fried onions that you ate earlier today. This is the same thing if you're going to knock on my door and come to my mind telepathically. I don't want to smell your fried onions. I don't want your disheveled mind. I want your clean and hygienic, well-organized mind. So I'm not being judgmental because each one of us can be disheveled. When I get up in the morning, my hair is sticking up like this. I haven't brushed my teeth. I'm not together. It takes time, and you cultivate yourself, and then you present yourself, and then you go out into the world. We're allowed to be that way with our minds as well. We are allowed to have the deep, private resources, or recesses rather. For example, like when I'm home at night at the end of the day, like I put on my pajamas, I go curl up in bed with my cat. Like no one public sees me in that persona. That's who I am in my bedroom, curled up with my cat. That's analogous to each one of us has our own private interior spaces that you are, I don't give you permission to have them, you're supposed to have them, you're allowed to have them. And they must be respected by others in the telepathic society, all right? So this is part of it. Remember, I also spoke about unconditional love as a prerequisite for entering into galactic society and being able to control oneself. So you have to be able to be a good guest in someone else's mind, be non-judgmental, control yourself, and not go into inappropriate places. Like when I go to visit somebody's house, like I'll go to their living room, I'll go to their kitchen. I don't go all the way back into their house, into their bedroom and look in their sock drawer. That's not right. So it is that way with our minds. And we also will learn in this telepathic society to hold up appropriate boundaries. For example, if someone did try to wend their way into my hallway and go into my secret, private sock drawer, I have barriers that prevent people from doing that. And these are important things to have, because there are those beings in the realm who do not observe boundaries and protocol, and we have to protect ourselves from them. We'll call them like people who aren't ready to be in the club of telepathic communication and unconditional love and noospheric connection. They're people who are more interested in how to exploit others, how to use others, how can I get something from you? So it's like, oh, if I connect my computer to your computer, I can get all your secret files and use it to blackmail you. We don't want those people in the club. And a lot of what we are doing right now on an individual level and on a social and planetary level is weeding out the people that we don't want in the club. All right? Beings who would not be respectful or good guests within the telepathic community. Facebook and other social media is like a grand experiment. It is a baby step with training wheels into what it's like to be telepathic and have a telepathic community. So some people on Facebook, they're just like garbage bucket. They're like dumping everything. Say anything that comes into their mind, say anything mean to anyone else, all of that. Some people use it to spread vitriol. I'm feeling angry. I'm going to go on out there and poke some people's buttons. I'm going to see if I could stir up some hatred or vitriol, so all of the things basically that are being done there's also on Facebook people who are interested in uplift, people who are interested in inspiring one another, sharing their artwork and their music and their spirituality, or just having a positive social interaction. Like, what did you do today? I fed a horse, that's a nice thing to talk about. All of that stuff can and will occur telepathically. We are learning how to interact with each other respectfully. And we also have to understand that we don't want our minds and our network to be hijacked by the oppressors that have oppressed humanity for so long. So we really need to make sure that the noosphere is not just like Facebook in hyperspace. The idea that there's that you're not in control of your privacy, that others are using and exploiting you, that others are using you for their own benefit. Like, none of that is what this higher realm is all about. Now, instead of speaking in negatives, I'll speak in positives. This hyperspace realm, this noosphere, the telepathic community that we are becoming a part of, is all about mutual respect. Literally, this is the litmus test. If some hyperspace being comes to you and wants to talk to you, and if they are just like a huge interdimensional dickhead, don't talk to them, please. There's a lot of beings who have a terrible attitude, and they think because you're wearing a human body and you're on the surface of Earth right now, that you're not as good as them, you don't know as much as them, and that they're happy to give you, I call them didactic assholes, They're like schoolyard bullies. Like, I'm here to teach you a lesson by being a total asshole and learning what you're not supposed to be like. We don't want to have to interact with those beings. Something? It's like, our life is hard enough. We've already come from a totally victimized, abused, raped planet. We don't need didactic assholes to teach us lessons. Let's contrast that. Yes. Noelle says in chat down here, shall we call them IDDs or DAs? I like DAs because that's also kind of like a duck's ass, and that's how, it's good to be lighthearted. These beings, like, I always say no thank you to them, and it's just like a system of justification for abuse, like, stop punching yourself in the face, I'm teaching you to not punch yourself in the face. Like, no, that's not what's going on here. So we are now talking about humanity rising up out of the stance of victimhood and into stepping into one's own empowerment. This is part of the social change, okay? Now let's talk about biological change. We are going to undergo biological transformation in exactly the same way that a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. The biology is not the same. I am a hybrid, or an interim step between what once was and what is going to be. Even though my physical face and the structures of my features of my face don't necessarily look non-human, my body does not behave the way a human body used to behave. I am now made of a new type of material, and this material responds to consciousness. Everybody's bodies always responded to consciousness. Like, this is the mind-body connection. Everybody has always been making their bodies with their mind. The difference or the change is the rate of speed. So for example, in the past, let's say a person who has a very downtrodden attitude, over the course of their life, they would change the way their face and their body and their spine is, so that their lips go down and their shoulders go down. And then when you see them after many, many years of being a downtrodden victim, you know, everything about them looks like it has like fallen down by gravity, or someone who's been in a draining relationship or had a horrible job, or, you know, people escaping the Dust Bowl in the 1930s, the Okies in the Dorothea Lange picture. You know what I'm talking about. You can see written on the face of people who have been through a lot of pain. It took at that time many years to express the pain and degradation of a life through the physical features and the body. Now it is going to be very fast, and it's only going to get faster. So your interior state has always been reflected in the exterior physical form, but now it's going to be reflected even faster. So instead of taking many years to develop the downtrodden victim face, it doesn't take that long. Or how about the opposite? Expressing health and vitality. If you would like to transform into a more youthful version or a more vital version of your humanoid form, you may do that. I don't know if any of you have ever met a person like this personally, but there are many stories of someone who goes on a pilgrimage or on a life quest, and they come back looking younger and more vital. And people will say, "What have you done? What's different about you?" And they might say, "Oh, I went hiking in Switzerland," or "I volunteered my time in an orphanage in the Ukraine," or whatever it was that they did. But they changed on an interior level, and that changed what they look like in the physical realm. Our minds create our bodies, and our minds will be creating our bodies even more quickly. And the limitations of what we considered were the limitations of the physical body will drop by the wayside. So it must be understood, up until this point, the only reason why humans have had certain limitations is because they have told themselves over and over that they have those limitations. Things like, "I will grow older, become more decrepit, and one day die." I am seeing more and more stories now about people who are growing chronologically older, but they are not becoming more decrepit. This is very heartening. It might read something like, "Woman is 70, looks 30, attributes youth to vegetable juice." You know, like, you'll read these things. Or there's a really good one. These are true stories also. This is not like, BS fantasy stories, like take a magic pill and look younger. We're really talking about people who are living younger by cultivating their energy. There's a man in India, he began distance running in his 80s, and he is now over 100. And there's two things that I bring up about him. His physical body is youthful, and his attitude is youthful, because he is running to raise awareness for gender equality in India. The subcontinent has a lot of misogyny, and here is an elder and a man programmed from many generations to not respect women, who is showing that we must respect women. So that's part of it. You know, when you watch people grow older but not become decrepit, and you compare their minds, one thing across the board is that a lot of these people, their minds and consciousnesses and perception remain flexible and open, as opposed to, "I'm an old dog and I'm never going to learn new tricks. I just can't wrap my head around your newfangled ways. Things were better in the old days and I wish I could go back there." Like, all of those, that's all like, "I like the status quo and I am afraid of the future." All of those, that is like a heavy calcified attitude, and that's literally aging. Aging is not about the cells of your body growing older. Aging is about the functioning of your organic computer no longer running at optimum speeds. And computers don't run at optimum speeds because they're all clogged up with too much information. So, and this will be a part of the teaching in next semester about longevity, about increasing human longevity, but a lot of it has to do with, again, mental hygiene. You know how you wash and you slough off dead skin cells and dead hair and that goes down the drain? Well, we need to slough off dead experiences, dead ego identities, dead aspects of self that once served. My epithelial cells once served. They did a very good job of protecting my skin from, the outer realm. But they're dead now and they need to go. This is the same with many human ego characteristics. They once served, but they no longer serve in this new format, and they need to go. Mental hygiene, we need to wash this away. So one of the tools for that is recapitulation. This is from the works of Carlos Castaneda, but that is a very long and drawn out and analog process. You can actually do the same process of releasing old memories and soul retrieval, bringing back fragments of self that have been trapped in the past or undigested. You can do that now in a much faster and more direct way. And pretty much the way that you do that is utilizing your Merkaba. You program it to digest and release the denser energies that are preventing you from moving forward in an unimpeded manner. So programming your Merkaba is a lot like being a lawyer, or a wish crafter. When I get my birthday, I always craft my wishes very carefully because you get one wish a year and I want to get the maximum out of each wish, right? So it means choose your wording very carefully and be impeccable with your language. This is crucial. Impeccable means literally without sin, or not able to be pushed over. And the idea of being impeccable means that there's no flab, there's no mental flab, there's no extra, you can't pinch an inch. That you choose your words intentionally and that you stand behind every syllable that you choose. That's very big. That's a foundation idea of ascension and achieving that level of responsibility. Words are magic. I am making magical vibrations right now. I am very aware of the magical qualities of my voice and what happens when you make magical vibrations. And it's really important to use our capacities for voice in a responsible way. I was just prompted to speak again about ancient Atlantis. I told you back then, we did most of our communication telepathically. Utilizing the vibrations of the vocal cords was reserved for high ritual and very special words. Like, there were not usually conversations like, can you please pass the ketchup? That would be like the equivalent of like an opera, please pass the ketchup. It very like unnecessary, because you could just give someone a cue mentally that you needed the ketchup. I'm going to get the recording started again in the back. I want to talk a little bit more about the biological changes that are going to happen, because we're talking about what happens when you activate the higher faculties. We are familiar with the human presence when it is in its non-activated state. The human presence grows older and becomes decrepit and dies. It can't see through time. It can't perceive higher reality. We know all of what that life is like. What is it like when we begin to activate our higher faculties? So I've spoken a lot about sun gazing and my connection to sunlight and how each one of us is really intimately connected to the sun. This is where we are going. All right? A lot of people there that want to know what's going to happen in the future. What's going to happen in the future? And I don't make predictions about the future because I feel like it's a racket. No offense. I know that there's lots of people who are psychics in their channels, and you can give them money and they'll tell you blah blah is going to happen, or they'll write books or whatever. But really, I hope that you understand that they are giving you one possible permutation of the future, but that the future is a series of uncollapsed waveforms. Anything beyond for us to predict anything beyond this moment is not irresponsible, but it's like everything is happening beyond this moment. Any statement that I make will be a true statement. I can say, Noel, you will die. You will die. You die 1,000,000 times. You just died 1,000,000 times. Guess what, though? You will also live. Both of those statements are true statements. So if I was like, hey, guys, like, I want a lot of money. I can see the future. Give me money, and I will tell you your future. Like, I would give you accurate readings of your future. But as soon as I gave you those readings, your future would change, or you would be directed in this direction, and as soon as I gave you information, you would be directed in this direction, and everything that I told you would be no longer relevant. So, okay, when our higher faculties are activated, we will be able to each see our own future and the future possibilities. You'll make your own choices, all right? You will make informed decisions. How different life will be from being like, okay, I don't know where I'm going, there's 5 roads and I'm just gonna randomly choose that one. Like, this is mostly how humans are guiding, or, lack of guidance, just, like stumbling through life. How different it will be when we will actually be able to see, if I choose to talk to this person, I'll get this job offer. If I choose to go to this party, I will experience this. And if I choose to move, I will experience this. I want to talk a little bit about changes to food, because we are going to change how we ingest food. I told you that we came from a time when we did not have to chew up physical objects and place them in our alimentary canals in order to survive, and we are going to return to that time, but not like in a reversal, more like in a renewal, like having gained or grown from our experience of not being able to eat pure sunlight. So we are going to turn into a telepathic society that has incredible longevity and eats pure sunlight. So right now, a lot of our economy and our personal endeavors are focused just on food. We were talking earlier tonight about trees. One of the amazing things about trees is that they are amazed at us, about us, is how much energy we use to move around our fatty idea catcher. We use so much energy to walk around and carry our brain, our organic computer. We just want to make sure that my cord isn't pulled out of the wall here. We spend all sorts of physical energy, moving from place to place, in contrast to trees who are rooted in one place. So they don't have to expend that amount of energy in the search for food. That trees understood, wow, you guys are moving all the time. You're walking all over the place. You're moving all over the place. That this is really in an effort to find food and resources. Imagine how different your day would be if you no longer had to expend so much energy in the acquiring of food. Even in our relatively sophisticated world, food is highly available, and it's not any harder to find than, walk 1 block in a direction and give someone some money and you can get some food. But think about this. Think about how many hours a day are spent in grocery shopping, in food prep, in cleaning up after food. The society, this is just as an individual, and then of course brushing your teeth after food, using the toilet as a result of food. A lot of energy goes into food. And I have this contrast because, I'm working with my hyperspace beings, and a lot of times they did not get the necessities of food and how much it rules your life when you're actually in the body. So they've had an awakening through associating with me, understanding how much time and energy it goes into just food. And I know that it might be hard to envision this, but it will be a huge relief when you no longer have to eat physical objects. Right now, luckily, all of the beings that are here on this video conference, we are all healthy beings, not in hospice, dying on an intravenous drip or something like that. So we all have good appetites. I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to go home and eat some pizza, or, I can't wait to go home and drink some juice or eat some vegetables or whatever. Like, I'm excited about that. But, if your vitality is very low and if you're on your deathbed, you don't feel like eating, you don't need to ingest more energy. So the people that I'm talking to here on this broadcast, you think, but wait, Aurora, I love chocolate cake. I want to keep on eating chocolate cake. I don't want to stop eating chocolate cake. And I'm trying to give you a new idea, which is that once you have eaten chocolate cake once, you contain the neurological recording of that cake, and that you will no longer have to physically eat physical cake in order to have that pleasant experience and nourishment. That you, in the future, we will all receive our nourishment by directly connecting to the sun or a star, directly ingesting light, and the sensation of it is a pleasant sensation. And it can taste like whatever we wish it to taste like. So I know I've told you guys, for me, it was coconut pudding. And it's not always that, but one time it was a very clear sensation, and I felt pudding going, when you swallow something, I could feel something being swallowed, and it was as tasty and nourishing as this wonderful sweet, coconut. This frees us up. Literally. And you're in the process of transformation. Okay, so right now you're about halfway. This is good. You're in the chrysalis. You have changed from being a caterpillar, but you're not a butterfly yet. You're an undifferentiated pile of goo. Caterpillars go through this stage in the chrysalis. It's why the chrysalis exists. It's like a shell that keeps the goo together. Well, that chrysalis is pretty much what humanity has been experiencing for like the past decade or so. We have all died. Earth has died. Earth is in the process of transformation into a new form. And we are in this shell, or this protected arena, so that we can be totally disarranged and then totally rearranged and emerge as something new in a new format. And that is what I say when I talk about the birth of a new dimension, or the birth of a new consciousness, or the birth of planetary consciousness. That's the analogy when the chrysalis actually opens up and the insect emerges in its adult form, and it can actually fly around and go places. Right now, we're all stuck on planet Earth, not because of gravity, because we require intermediaries to eat. My food first had to be chlorophyll. First, sunlight had to be caught as chlorophyll on a leaf, and then it had to be processed and ground up into plant parts and eventually made into my, delicious snack treats. If you are able to ingest sunlight directly, you do not need the intermediary of chlorophyll. Mike is asking, frequency had to be lowered? So I just need clarification about that. You mean for food? Yes, I think I understand your question. You're asking that frequency had to be lowered, going from pure sunlight to get into chlorophyll. You're absolutely correct. In the same way that energy is stepped down through electrical transformers, like from the power plant to your local power stations, to the telephone pole outside of your house, and then finally, to your actual home, energy is stepped down in its intensity from the galactic center. Galaxy power is like enough to blow all of your circuits out, to star power. Even star power is enough to totally incinerate you. If the sun loves us, that's why the sun is not exposing us to all of its totality right now, because if we were exposed to the totality of that consciousness, you'd be incinerated. You'd change states. You would go directly from a solid to a plasma without any of the intervening experiences. but the sun loves you and wants you to have those intervening experiences. So at the same time that we are raising our vibration and raising our frequency, our food and the consciousness from above has to be mellowed out or stepped down so that we can ingest it. Food has different layers of density. So very, very fresh food, like fresh fruits and vegetables or vegetable juice, is like very close to the sun, very high vibration stuff. When it gets densified into things like meat, it becomes lower vibration. This does not mean that it is less valuable. This just means that it is a denser form of energy. Guess what? Sometimes I need dense energy. Sometimes I need to eat a thick steak and, it takes a long time to digest and it's what my body needs. Sometimes I only need to drink a glass of vegetable juice. And I have really found in using this human form that the difference between the two has everything to do with activity level, If I'm doing a lot of muscle building exercises, then my body says, please feed me a cow. Like, please feed me dead flesh of a cow. And if I'm, sitting around doing mostly, meditation or just intellectual things, my body says, please give me some spinach juice, I don't really need that much. So there's also a couple of other things. Food is directly connected to our quality of consciousness. Right now, I would attribute a lot of the static inside of us and the muddiness of consciousness to low quality food. A lot of people find that their connection to source, their inner clarity, their inner spirituality improves when they eat less or when they eat less processed food. And I attribute that mostly to the fact that most of our food has been degraded and has very little life force in it. So that means, any time that you preserve food, you're actually reducing the life force. I learned all about this in terms of canning and preserving vegetables. Like, in order to kill bacteria, you have to heat the vegetables. But when you heat the vegetables, they lose a lot of their living enzymes and the qualities of them that make them worth eating. So the longer that you store food, the less valuable it is for you to actually eat. Food is consciousness. And when you are able to directly connect to the sun, you get direct solar consciousness. I see Mike has a question. I'm going to get there. But just one more thing. As a direct result of connecting to the sun and bypassing food going in your mouth, you don't age as quickly. And the reason is eating physical objects takes a lot of wear and tear on the body. First of all, combustion as a source of energy is very inefficient. It produces a lot of byproducts. This is what science calls the free radicals. The oxygenation, the byproduct of oxygenation of burning things in your body are these free radicals. And basically, like, when you eat denser foods like bacon or pork or some dense heavy meat, it takes more energy for your body to digest it. So many people don't have a lot of energy to begin with, and then if you give them a diet of meat at every meal, it just takes down their vitality and their energy even more, because sadly enough, most people are not creating muscle building activities for themselves every day. Eating meat at every meal and not engaging in muscle building activities means you will achieve a very large backlog of energy that needs to be eventually recapitulated. That means you'll get fat. It means that there will be energy stored up and you'll have to go back in. But that's like, everybody's giving themselves their own life course of study. If your life course of study is 65 pounds worth of hamburgers from previous years, then you have ingested those hamburgers and then you must go through that emotional backlog. And what this means is when we move into the future and we are ingesting pure sunlight, we won't develop emotional backlog anymore. All right? On the plus side, you can eat as much as you want and you won't get fat, right? But what does this mean emotionally? What does this mean for the beings who occupy the interstices? Because remember, they feed off of the emotional detritus. They are like the arterial clogs of the universe. So now I hope that it's all coming together. This is a totality of vision here. Humans will be telepathic with each other and with the planet. Humans will no longer have to eat other plants and animals to stay alive. They'll connect directly to the sun, and humans will therefore no longer be tied to the surface of the planet. And you won't have to build a metal spaceship with a flying garden in it either to grow your tomatoes in space. You won't have to do that, my friends, at all. You won't have to have a spaceship. You won't have to have a spacesuit. You won't have to have anything more than your body and your energy system. And I'll also tell you, it is much more fun to travel with a group. You can make this soul migration as a lone individual, and I think it's much more fun to travel with others, and that is why I am doing what I am doing. I travel as a collective. This is where I came from. I didn't always know where I came from, like as a walk-in. You know, it's kind of like if you're a tiny child, you know, you're a little baby. You don't necessarily know, like, I was born in the United States or I'm from Canada. You know, you don't necessarily know those things. My understanding grew as my consciousness and my awareness grew. And I was given the amount of information that I needed in order to make my GPS turns of the moment, okay? So I now am able to know my context of where I came from. And it's like this, but it moves. So first of all, it moves from star system to star system, and the internal structure inside of it is like, I would say, an engine or a mechanism with gears. And the gears are made of living beings, living consciousnesses, and we share energy with one another. And the energy is in the form of unconditional love, tones like musical vibrations, ideas, the memory of food. It's a whole mental ecosystem. So this is important stuff. We will enter into a realm that is essentially a purely mind, consciousness, energy, and spirit realm, having raised the vibration of our physical matter of our bodies. All right? So this is what ascension is. Instead of saying, you're dead, your spirit flies on, and your body stays here and worms eat it. That doesn't have to be your reality. Your reality can be that you become telepathic, learn to eat sunlight, transform the cells of your body into a new type of matter, and eventually leave the rocky surface of third-dimensional Earth and fly through space as a floating collective of consciousnesses going from star system to star system. And the, dimensional portal that you do this through is the sun. And I've spoken before about how you can take a sun bath, but to any aspect of yourself that is not the divine eternal self, it gets washed away. When you take a demon and you say, demon, I am going to send you into the sun, and there's like a little tiny spark of God at the center of that demon. Demon goes into the sun, and all of this stuff gets washed away, washed away, washed away, washed away. And then this is all that's left, all right? But you and me, we are not demons. We are more than just a tiny little spark of divine consciousness. We are 100% divine consciousness. Of course, when we occupy the ascended master timeline, I'm drawing that timeline in the background right now. When we are on that center timeline, we are 100% divine consciousness. That means that when we go into the sun, we don't lose any aspect of ourself. Nothing gets washed away. This is, again, I have these pauses so that you really let that sink in. It's like if you were an ice cube or a snowman and we made you go swimming in a lake, you'd be like, I'm afraid because what I am is going to get washed away. But if you're made of something that is impervious, or I'm not using a good analogy here, trying to actually say this. When you raise your vibration to become a pure light being and then enter into a realm of pure light, such as a star or the sun, you are light surrounded by light. And you don't lose anything because no aspect of yourself is darkness. So we are here on this journey in the third dimension, learning to identify with the aspects of ourself that are pure light. The aspects of yourself that are darkness or perturbations or shadow or the unconscious that is only in existence because there's no light of Christ-like awareness that is illuminating it, those shadow aspects of self do not come with us through the wormhole. This little wormhole right here, I'm drawing in red up there on the screen, that would be where we enter the sun. So, on this ascension timeline, this centralized timeline, all that matters is that you hold the space for a magical or miraculous experience or reality. Here's an example. You're like, but wait, Aurora, my physical form is made out of normal flesh. I know you're a walk-in and you're an unusual person, but my stuff, I'm just made of normal flesh, so I'm just going to die.